Hey, good afternoon. It's Jeff, Godless Scammer. I'm back here again with Hissy from Hissy's Hideaways. We're going to continue our journey through the Asterix books. So today we're going to be doing the third book, Asterix and the Goths. So, Hissy, as the resident sort of history expert here, you want to actually tell us who the Goths were, because I think the thumbnail might be a bit I put on the screen might be a bit misleading. This wasn't like Marilyn Manson fans, so
tiny little bit, yeah. Although I am going to preempt this by saying who the Goths were is completely irrelevant to this story.
Yes, I thought,
which we were discussing slightly before we went live, but it is totally irrelevant as to who the Goths were. All you have to know is essentially they were, I'm going to call them proto-Germans, i.e. they were from the area of land that would become Germany about 1800 years later. And as they were a people that the Roman Empire were not capable of invading, they were constantly at odds with the Roman Empire. And back then, everything was tribal and there was no such thing as alliances anywhere, really. You were either with the Romans or against them, and you were also against anyone else who was against the Romans. There was very little by way of forming alliances and things. So essentially, you've got a three-part war with the Romans, the Gauls, and the Goths, pretty much based over Europe.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where they... that's kind of where they go. Damn it, Ring!
Nice
you made me break line.
Nice one, Ring. Put that up on.
So yes, let's put that up. Essentially they're just very, very early Germans. They didn't take kindly to the Roman Empire, and pretty much they fought back. There's the famous sackings of Rome, which were done by the Goths.
I mean, the famous one, I'd say the famous one is probably in 410 AD, which was led by Alaric, who obviously, when we start reading this book, you're going to see a lot of the names of the Goth characters in this are going to be somewhat plays on Alaric. But if you want to tell us just quickly who Alaric was, although he was obviously centuries after the events this is supposedly set in, but
so Alaric he's one of those, I have to be honest, he's not my major area of expertise as such. I know who he is generally, and that's about it. So he's basically king of the Visigoths. I've got a lisp today. He's king of the Visigoths, and essentially he decides he's kind of had enough when it comes to Italian expansionism by sort of... you said 410, didn't you? I think that's about right, actually.
I think it was 410.
Yeah, so I think he was coronated in late 300s, late 300s. And he was one of the few who managed to actually get into Rome. There was the siege in 410, and they sacked the city for 3 days straight. I think is the Alaric one.
That's right. Now, if my memory of the history of it serves me correct, Alaric at one time did fight for the Romans, and I think there was perhaps maybe some promises that had been made to him and his people that were not lived up to by Rome. And I mean, what he actually did, as far as I remember, is he laid siege to Rome, not with the intention necessarily of sacking it, but it was holding the city hostage to get the Roman Emperor Honorius, who was based in Ravenna at the time, to negotiate. Honorius is quite I suppose he was a bit young, inexperienced, not remembered as being something of a weak emperor generally. But they obviously they didn't end up negotiating. Alaric didn't get what he wanted, so eventually it was just like, we're going to sack the city and get what we can out
I mean,
of it.
as well, what you have to understand is that this is smack in the middle of the decline of Rome.
Yeah.
This is not Rome at the height of its power. This is Rome on its last legs. I mean, within a couple of 100 years, you'd have the whole of Roman Empire in Byzantium, and that would be sort of the end of it, really.
I think by 410 AD, the Roman Empire had already split into two anyway.
Yeah.
So, and the East in Constantinople, I think, was a bit more better off, perhaps in the Western half. But I think actually we need to actually get into this. We need to get into this particular book, but I think maybe we should address the elephant in the room with this particular one before we do.
It was written by a Frenchman in the 1960s.
Yeah, and this, you get the feeling there's perhaps a little bit of post World War II
bad blood.
Bad blood's there. There's a little bit of there's a very much an undertone of slightly anti-German rhetoric about this one, so it maybe doesn't hold up quite so well as nowadays as some of the others. So that is probably the elephant in the room in this one, and we'll probably show some examples of this as we go through this. But I think we should start with this and in the village, and this almost leads on from the events of the last book. If you remember, Getafix was saying he was going to go to this big druids conference in the forest of the Carnutes, and effectively he's packing for his journey there, and Asterix and Asterix and Obelix have sort of agreed to accompany him, but they're not supposed to actually go into the forest whilst the Germans are not the Germans, the druids. Sorry, are it's sort of it's a druids only affair in the forest sort of thing. No one else allowed. But
yeah, let's have a look at this. Let's see what I can. Because there was one
watch.
cute little joke I liked, which let me have a look. You see how many I have right now. We're going to be doing the screen sharing thing again, if I can make it work.
I was about to share it and then I lost it. So
right, okay. Let me see what I can do. Let me just entire screen it. It's easier. Okay, cool. So
that. Okay, cool. I'll put that full screen for a second. Yeah. Okay. So we got the. Yeah, can I come to Menhirs are out of season at the moment? Yeah.
Which made me chuckle.
Yes, and then you of course Cacophonix is saying I'll sing you a song of farewell, so you pretty much know what's going to happen to him in the very next panel, you know.
Yeah, he's stuffing pounded out of him.
Yes. Anytime he threatens to sing, we know what's going to kind of happen there with him. So, if I just go,
yep,
yeah, I'll just put us back full screen for a sec.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right, let me have a look. I've actually got that shot as well of Cacophonix getting the stuffing beaten out of him. If you want to hang on.
Yeah. There we go. Oh, we had it a second ago.
Did you have it? Okay, cool.
I did have it a second ago. There we go. So we know what happens anytime he's going to sing. No, you are not singing.
No, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. So that's I like the running gags in this series. It's quite nice. They get to feel familiar after the second or third one, and they kind of feel
you kind of know what some of the running gags are going to be with this now by now already. So they're off on their journey. Meanwhile, we've got some Goths and on the edge of the Roman Empire, and then about to attack a couple of unsuspecting legionaries.
This one was they saw two Goths and then someone from the thing. Well, I count 3, but the reason I actually took a picture of this shot is the mile marker.
Yes.
which just I think speaks to every town in Britain anywhere, doesn't it? You are entering, you are leaving.
You are now leaving the Roman Empire,
which is just amusing to me. It feels very quaint, and it's that humour there.
Yeah.
Okay, the names of these two soldiers.
Was it gastroenteritis?
Gastroenteritis, and if you can pronounce that, you're doing better than I can.
Probably can't, to be honest with you.
Arteriosclerosis.
Yeah.
Sclerosis?
Arteriosclerosis, yeah, I guess what that is.
Yeah. So it's obviously some,
This is what I say. I love some of the puns with the names in this series. And I think you got your first little couple of panels down after these poor Romans have this got beaten up and gagged. But you got your first little Latin pun of this one.
Yeah, this one here. Errara humanimus.
Now tell me what. I thought is that something that I've heard was attributed to Seneca, that particular line, but
to where is human. Let me quickly do a check for you, because I got my notes on my phone now, and I know I wrote down where it came from. Attributed to Seneca, yes. And the full quote's quite amusing, because the longer Latin, I'm going to translate it. I'm not going to tell you it in Latin, because I'll probably mangle the pronunciation. To err is human, but to persist is diabolical. Which basically, which is a nice little amusement that these Romans keep trying to take on the Gauls.
Yeah. They've just been ambushed by some Goths here, and been very much and I think what you might sort of see here is I don't see it quite so much in this panel so much, but if you have a look at the helmets that the Goths are wearing,
you can see better in this one.
Now you can kind of see, or where there is the slight element of some parodies of Germans a bit here. I don't know how well it shows up here, but that they are very much play on the sort of like old Prussian sort of war helmets, like the sort of the helmets that were quite well known in World War One. I think before that in the Prussian army, and and it'd be a variant of that, right up to the Wehrmacht in World War Two, but just with the old sort of spike on the top of it. It was gone by then, but so you can kind of see already where we're going here with some of the little digs at the Germans in this.
It is notable as well that the Goths are characterized as the enemy and as baddies, as it were. And so far as I can tell in this entire series from some quick research I did, they're the only other characters but the Romans to be presented in such a way. And they're actually presented a lot of the time as more competent than the Romans, which is kind of problematic. You see a lot of it when later in the story, they march a lot and they goose step and they're very well disciplined, shall we say? Incredibly well disciplined, completely anachronistically. But it's a dig at the German history of the time.
Yes.
And the poor Germans do not come out of this one. They've got they take it in the neck, something chronic in this one. I cannot.
Totally.
I really cannot.
As I say, this particular may not necessarily hold up as well as some of the others, I'd say, but that you can tell that there's a lot of anti-German kind of jokes in this.
There's a lot of resentment, and I did read, I think, on the fandom wiki for Asterix and the Goths, that
Yeah.
they spoke to the creator of this, and he did
Yeah.
say years later he did regret how harsh some of it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I can understand it. I'm Polish descent. Believe me, I can understand
Yeah.
why you would hate Germans in that
It,
era. Believe me.
it
But
kind of reminds me of the joking Yes Minister when the Germans well, you know, why Germany had decided to like join the like European what was to
yes,
become the
to
European Union.
apply for readmission to the human race.
Yes, and that series was in the 80s, and we're still doing jokes like that, you know. So you can kind of tell there's still. I mean, you've got to remember that, you know, this is before we had things like Basil Fawlty goose stepping. So you've got to, I suppose, put this in the context of its time, I think. But
yeah, I am now waiting for Ring to make his comment that he always makes when we talk about Basil Fawlty in the hotel. Ring.
I guess
Come on.
don't mention the war.
I'm expecting it in all caps. Ring. Don't mention the war. I showed him that, and he found it totally hilarious.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
it is.
we better get back. We better get a little bit more into this book again. Now they're on. So they're on the. Whilst this is happening, Getafix, Asterix, and Obelix, they're on their way to the Forest of the Carnutes. Now
I do have a nice little.
Yeah.
Let me bring this up.
What's going
British
on now?
druid.
Yes.
Who we meet.
Yes.
Who amuses me for reasons. So many reasons, all of them multi-layered. His name to start with. Value-added tax.
Yeah. He's done it, Hissy. He's done it.
Which is a distinctly, I note, British thing, I think.
Yes.
Do you want to stop the screen share?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's a very distinctly British.
Yes.
Thing is the value-added tax.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's something that Europe does like to take and dig at us occasionally for.
Yes.
But it was, you know, the idea is it keeps trade open, it keeps the schools and hospitals open.
I mean, you probably got to remember that obviously with the translations into English, that whoever did that is probably thinking of some jokes to put in there that are specific as well. So you do have to remember that.
Yeah, but just to give an idea, I mean, I know for a fact when I came over here, I think when Ring came over here, he was quite confused by value-added tax.
Yeah.
And the only way I could explain it was by comparing it to sales tax in the US.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much on everything. Although someone please explain to me how caviar is a necessity but sanitary towels aren't. Come on, come at me.
Yeah, okay.
Just an aside.
So we mentioned here that there's a little Roman patrol, and mentions that there's kind of a little truce going on between the Druids and the Romans for this, and then, you know,
again, that's a bit of a temporary truce between those who would fight the Goths.
Yeah.
The Italians don't come out of this very well either, do they?
Yes.
So, but then the druid finally gets to his meeting, and he goes to meet all the other druids. And I just love this one because in the middle of all this politics and the kind of viciousness of this one,
yes,
there's this, which I just adore. Jokes and puns, and are having a good time at the annual Druid Fest. You know,
I do like this. This food's a bit sickly. Pass me the cell. It must be his gallbladder.
Men are a true word spoken in jest.
Yes, very. Yeah. So and then we get to the point here that And this is weird that you always think this is there's like a bit of a contest stroke award ceremony feel to this whole thing. We're going to vote for Druid of the Year, you know, and
Yeah.
so they're all going to it's their magic spells and you know, obviously waiting in well, keeping an eye on them is our little group of Goths, and they're looking for a Gaulish druids that to take back to sort of to take back to Germania and sort of maybe help them prepare for like an invasion of Gaul or something. So they're looking at them. I mean, I love the one that they're sitting in the bushes, and the first one casts this spell which brings a bunch of flowers, and this guy clapping, and the guy's been his mates tell him shut up, but I love I can like flowers even if I am a barbarian, can't I?
Yeah. It's a very nice joke, that one. And then I also like the candidates' names. The guy who made the flowers was Botanix.
Yeah.
And then candidate number 2 was Prefix, who threw some powder in the air and made it rain. Because the weather's all topsy-turvy these days. 2,000 years and we're all complaining about the same things.
Yep.
And then Druid suffix is the next one. So, you know, prefix comes before suffix. Powdered soup, so it can be carried about in little packets, much less bother than a cauldron.
Yeah.
And now and then we have this one, which is, I think this is Value Added Tax who does this, isn't it? No.
Oh, he's next one up, I think, the Immune to Pain.
Yeah, Immune to Pain.
Where are we? There we go.
I took the picture of this one because this is a historical anachronism.
Yes.
And you know me and historical anachronisms. Really, French fries 2,000 years ago in oil.
Yeah.
Really. Do I have to say more? But it's. I mean, it's fun. I get it. It's a good joke, but I did sort of sigh and roll my eyes a bit because there's a line, and these comics are very good at walking it, but I think that crosses it into the absurd ever so slightly.
Yes.
But it's a nice little. I like the lighter I am focusing very much on the lighter moments in this comic because, quite frankly, I don't want to get into the politics of it because too much.
I mean, we'll touch on it a little, but we'll try not. But we've already sort of prefaced that there are things that today might be seen as being a bit
Yeah. So this one again, that's a Visigoth helmet, and you can see it very clearly.
I know, Hops. No. So now, obviously, you know who's going to win this because who's got makes a certain druid who has a potion for superhuman strength, that being Getafix, and he wins his Golden Menhir award. So our goth friends here are very much think he's the one. So he's kidnapped. Off they go with him.
And so now he's had a nice dig about, again, I am going to comment on the politics here because this is an important segue. Now he's had a thorough dig at the Germans over the Second World War.
Yes.
He then decides he's going to have a dig at the Germans over something they have literally no control over. Which is the beginnings of long-standing jokes about the split of Berlin and the split of Germany post-war in the Cold War.
Yes, this is which one's about the Visigoths are the Goths from the west. The Goths from the east are Ostrogoths, but in relation to us, the Goths in the west live in the east. And so you see, and Obelix is like, no. And this is something Obelix is like can't get his head around this one quite, but But you can
Yeah,
see that is very much a dig at the partition of Germany after the war, isn't it? So
yeah. And there's a lot of that going through, which is why I've highlighted it now, because there's quite a few times I'm going to highlight it. But then we do get a nice shot of the Romans here, who, again, a little bit of lightness, General Cantankerous.
I think Jen's into some fan fiction here.
Oh, where are we looking?
You know, Bellatrix could have been an Asterix character.
And I can't see Bellatrix as a Gaul.
No. Seeing as it's actually the Gaulish men's names that end in IX as well, so generally.
I mean, it's probably going to be a better plot than Cursed Child, but I mean, so's a roll of toilet paper. So, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Here's one we can, again, with the threat of Julius Caesar. If you want to share my screen again, Jess, because this is again more.
We are sharing it.
Germany.
Yes. Where is yes, a couple of pages on here. Chasing Gauls from the west instead of Goths from the east. So they're all up the pole. Yeah. Do
you want to explain?
I'll let you do it, I think, with this one.
Yeah. Up the pole now. It doesn't carry as much harshness as some comments about Polish people, but it is still not a term I would advise anyone who isn't Polish to use about Polish people. I think what essentially Poland was, and rightly so, given its strategic importance in Europe and its sheer land value, both above and below land, because seriously, the minerals and stuff under there are mad. Always seems to be the center of conflict in Europe, particularly even when it seems other places are the center of conflict. Go far back enough and you'll find an attempted invasion of Poland or an invasion of Poland.
Yes.
That started it all, and it's this is very they're all up the pole. The idea being that they're all kind of I'm trying to find the words to explain it to someone who doesn't know the history and it's not personal to, and I'm struggling. This one, being of Polish descent, irritates me slightly.
Yes, I can see why.
But you can take it as just a joke, because in the next one, you know, they're up trees and things.
Yes.
But it's kind of... Listen, we call them microaggressions for a reason. They're not always easy to explain.
Yeah. So I think what we help next is the Romans are looking for Goths who they've mistaken Asterix and Obelix for being Goths, and Asterix and Obelix decide they're going to steal a couple of legionary uniforms to go about their way.
And I think we saw that they were practicing on the Romans saying Ave and Hail Jupiter.
Yeah.
Which I found quite amusing. But then this in particular amused me, and I know it will amuse anyone who's got any understanding of military dress regulations.
Yes.
Did you notice the hair and whiskers on them? And I've shown this first, so I can then go back to this one. So you can very much see that that's a joke that's always going to be very topical, but equally it's a joke that does fit the history as well. Because I think I said last week the Romans were very much, you know, you've got to be clean shaven.
Yes.
So there's that particular point. And let me see what the next one is. And then the poor guard at the poor guard at the border.
It's getting poor guy is getting it's like he first of all gets them in he gets bonked on the head by Goths who are going back into Germania. And I love the fact that you've got this not a lot dotted line drawing Gaul, Roman Empire, and Germania, like the signposts and that is,
Yeah, it's very again, how tedious these border formalities can be. Again, with the Cold War jokes.
I do like that. There's one I think on the page before, like the swear word jokes, which I thought were quite amusing.
That a little bit later on. If you want to stop sharing my screen, I'll find it and then pop it up.
Okay. I think it was the page before or page before the one you just shown, but
I've got it, but I had to go back and re-photograph it because it photographed right the first time. What is it? I know I've got it.
Yeah. So one with Asterix swearing in Gaulish, and then swearing in
Gothic.
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh. I know I've got it in here. I know I do. Because I looked at that, because there was something on there that I wanted to point out, because I was quite frankly horrified. And you probably know what I'm talking about.
Oh. I have a feeling.
If you have a look. Because that's not subtle. That is not subtle in the slightest. And for that to be in a children's comic, kind of, I don't even think, I know I took the picture.
Yeah.
But essentially what they do is, in the tradition of Asterix and comic books in general, they do, get affixes, effing and blinding, and it's all pictures and skulls and all the rest of it. And then in one below, the Goths are effing and blinding, and the comment is, these symbols translate to the same symbols that Getafix was swearing. So you can kind of link it all back together. But the symbol, one of the symbols in the Gothic,
let's just say it. Yeah, it is. Again, does not hold up well at all today. It does not hold up. I mean, the joke in itself is a good joke, but it's just that putting that in it doesn't really hold up.
Yeah, it's one of those. I don't know where it's gone. I know I photographed it, but I can't find it in this folder. In my defense, I've got like 30 odd pictures in this folder. That
I can imagine. I will find it later or something. But I mean, it was a good joke, but obviously, as we say, some of this stuff doesn't stand up quite so well today.
Yeah, I mean, they could have drawn anything else there, if they'd have drawn like a pair of breeches or something, like German.
I'm actually
breeches or something. It might have worked.
I'm even a little bit surprised that in the later prints of the books that hasn't been sort of edited out, to be honest with you. But I don't know. They've kind of they've left it how it is, and I mean, there's so much kind of in here already, isn't there? And
yeah, there's kind of, you can't really, the line would be arbitrary if that was the only thing changed.
Yeah.
Because there's another one later on, and again, let me get this loaded up, when they're captured by the Goths.
Yes.
So they are eventually captured by the Goths, and we see this, and I think this is meant to draw a comparison between the Goths and the Romans and their cultures, which is fair enough in the context of the comic, but in the context of the comic, drawing an image of them being led into a arena to be quartered by horses is not. It sticks in the throat.
Hmm.
It really does.
Yeah.
Particularly when this is the arena.
Yes, and then we've got to think of them also whether they're sneaking into the camp by pretending to be Gothic warriors, and they're quite clearly goose stepping. The Gothic warriors are all in line, and they are goose stepping in their marching. It's very, it's very, very obvious what they are going at there. But yeah, there's some, like I said, there is still, don't get me wrong, there is still a lot in this book which is really good and really funny, but there are definitely things that have not stood the test of time here.
This is a great one when they're trying to quarter Obelix, and just the joke with the horse is quite amusing, which I've got on my screen now if you want to share that.
Yeah.
And again, this is fantastic. What? Unhitch the prisoner, fetch wilder horses.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's not working, but fetch wilder horses. That would be a great joke if it wasn't so entrenched in. But again, all of this, you do have to kind of.
Yeah.
Got to kind of read it and try and forget the history if you're going to enjoy it, because it's very difficult to enjoy. I mean, the red flag with the white dot, but then a different symbol of what's quite clearly, that particular nation there is not accidental, and even the formation of the horses, which again I didn't photograph, is very reminiscent of a swastika.
I think we could leave that. Yeah, we could definitely leave that to people's imaginations there. I think it was pretty. Like I said, definitely an awful, like definitely a lot here where there are.
So it gets rough. So if you've got, I spent a lot of time studying this. This is my history. This is my family history. And it's dark. A lot of this humor is incredibly dark. But the thing is, as much as I'm complaining about it, I can forgive it, because the guy who wrote this realistically probably lived through it.
Yeah.
And you have to have an understanding of that. But equally, it doesn't excuse making what would have been the next generation, who had nothing to do with the Second World War and were children, feel like they had to apologize for being German.
Yeah.
Which was a major problem throughout the 20th century in Europe. Very much until, I would say, at least the late 90s, the Germans were apologizing for everything that happened. And it's only, I think, very recently we've begun to move away from that inherent, inbred mistrust of Germans in Germany in general. I mean, I know when I was a kid, I had that mistrust, and I've had to unlearn that.
Yeah.
So we're talking in the last 20 years that shift has happened, and it's a good shift, and it's about damn time. Because, Germany's not the only country in the world that's ever, made a mistake, and its population has suffered for it. And it's about time we begin to recognise that, particularly with what's happening in current politics.
Yes.
So, that's my little... I'm going to climb off my soapbox for a little bit now.
Yeah, I think we should. We try to keep these as light-hearted as possible, but...
this one's difficult. I like this joke anyway. They get to the Gothic village.
Yeah.
2,500 years ago, the guy's name's Electric.
Oh yeah, we're getting right near towards the end of the book here, and but like I said, that you've got this thing where they effectively they tried to get Effects to brew the magic potion for them, so they can and I'll just put what Hopswatch said. Yeah, I totally understand that. Totally understand that. But it's so the Gothic chieftain is trying to get Getafix, and this slimy little interpreter is like deliberately misinterpreting what Getafix is saying.
Where's it gone?
Yeah.
So yeah, Rhetoric is that. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to tell this story because we were discussing this beforehand, and this is a kind of, even though it is historically based, it's a bit of an amusement.
Yes.
So what happens in this is Rhetoric is translating between the Gauls and the Goths, and he deliberately mistranslates. Or we think he deliberately mistranslates. Then a few pages later, we find out that he doesn't actually speak Gothic.
Yeah.
Totally agree, Jen. But what that reminded me of, and I mentioned it to Jeff before we started, and we had a bit of a giggle. I agree
with that sentiment.
So in the late 50s, I think 59, don't quote me. It would have been post Stalin a few years. Stalin died in 56, didn't he?
53, I think, but yeah, it's just several. Yeah,
same year the Korean War ended.
It was Khrushchev's era, though.
Yeah. So this is Khrushchev's era, and Khrushchev decided he was going to toddle along to China and meet Mao. Very big thing, at the time, Russia and China getting together, but it caused the Sino-Soviet split because, quite frankly, that story of that trip alone could make an Asterix story. So Khrushchev arrives in China. He's met in the airport for a meeting. Diplomatic nightmare, where's your grand hotel and your meeting rooms? The translators are not fluent in Russian idioms. And Khrushchev calls Mao an old boot, which is a gentle insult relatively. And I say relatively because the word boot in Chinese is the same word for the word of prostitute. And guess how the translators took it?
Yes.
And therefore how Mao took it. And I mean, we're talking on a level where Khrushchev was known not to be able to swim and couldn't, and wasn't particularly dexterous. So Mao held meetings later on in the week in swimming pools, and you've got Khrushchev there with armbands, pictures of Khrushchev with armbands and things. It was just pure. I think I would call it the most dangerous prank war in human history.
Yes, I mean, to be fair, I think that there's been tension building between the Russia and China for a bit before that, but that incident certainly helped speed up the process of that split immensely. I've got to say one little recurring joke I quite like within this book is how Asterix and Obelix keep getting locked up in this dungeon, and the poor guy guarding the door.
Oh yeah, can you please leave the door alone? How many times does
breaking the door open? They keep smashing the door, and
it's just a wooden door. Yeah, and I think they break the door about 4 times, 3 or 4 times, in various ways. And the poor guard, and you kind of have to feel a bit for the Romans because they're all working under the threat of being eaten by lions if they don't do the job properly.
Yeah.
Which
one of them actually asked like the centurion, says, "Well, something can we get seats in the circus?" Says, "You'll get the best seats in the house in the arena with the lions." It's like that.
You'll get right up, you get right up close and personal.
So, I mean,
but
I guess whilst they're here, Asterix, Obelix, and Getafix are kind of like they rather than just escaping and going back to Gaul, they decide that they're going to. Getafix is saying, they may invade Gaul one day, and so we're going to stir up a bit of trouble amongst the Goths. Is where this is going.
Yeah, and again, by the time Asterix and Obelix have finished, a Cold War map of Europe looks easy.
Yes.
With all the alliances and everything. It's madness. But it is actually I didn't take the picture of it, but it is very similar to how it ends up. It's quite clearly that the entire thing is based on the Cold War, the way it's been done. But it's funny because, you've got, where is it? When I do have Gauls invading Gaul, wonderful, as helpful as ever I see. I suppose you still think I'm a fool.
Yeah.
Said the Roman centurion.
Yes. This poor sentry on the border.
Yeah. Although I will point out that Roman centurions, this irritates me. It irritates me quite a lot, and even on my T-shirt, it's wrong, and it irritates me. Centurions didn't wear, well, some of them did, but very few wore the headdress front, like pointing forwards. Many of them wore it kind of like a sun.
Yeah, I thought it went sort of that way.
It did, yeah. So not the way it's showing on my T-shirt, but the other way, which the T-shirt's not 3D. Well, it is, but that would make this stream totally indecent.
So what Getafix, I suppose, ends up doing here is brewing up the magic potion, giving it to this little weasel Rhetoric so that he can he can overthrow his chief Metric, which so you're getting all the little, and then they go and give Metric the power so he can start having a fight with Rhetoric. And so you see what's going here, that they're convincing them all to, like, say, they're kind of convincing them all here to start fighting amongst themselves for the throne or whatever, and who gets to lead.
Yeah, did you make a comment a couple of streams ago that this potion is essentially the sort of nuclear warhead is kind of a nuclear warhead?
I suppose it's of its time. This is probably this is the super weapon of the day. I would have thought, if in this particular universe anyway.
Because there is one where two of them have got it and they start fighting and then they get bored and just run off mumbling.
They do realise they can't beat one another. So, like, and this is where I think you see the Cold War humour in here. He says, "I'm going to raise an army against you. I'm going to raise an army against you." What you
I have that one.
You can see the yes. You can this sort of mean now they've just been fighting for like ages before this, and it's like they can't an impasse, and it's like, so you can kind of see the little digs at the Cold War in a sense here. Effectively arms race kind of coming up here. And then they throw some other poor guy into the equation here. This is the one. Okay, this is the humorous one. This peasant they give the to Electric,
and his wife is not a happy bunny.
No,
I don't have the image of that one, but
oh, is that Electric? Was it this, or was that the who's the other one? There's because there was one who said Electric, then he's like going to be I will now be known as General Electric.
Yeah, no, he does that. Yeah, he'll be not General Electric, which in the 60s I imagine probably didn't work and went on strike for 5 days a week.
Yeah. Oh, Euphoric's the other one.
Yeah. And again, you can tell this was translated into English by a Brit. Because a lot of these jokes are very, very British.
Yeah.
And the General Electric comment, just especially because this would have been late 60s?
Yeah, mid to late 60s, yeah.
So we're looking at times, I mean, it's probably pre-OPEC, because that was the 80s. I didn't live through it, so my knowledge of the timeline is purely learned, as opposed to I can think back and remember what order it came in. But
we get into this as I say, we get into this thing on the next page, the Asterixan Wars.
Yeah.
And I find, in a way, I find this might be the most humorous part of the book, in a sense, just because of the way all these factions are fighting one another, and
he does, and there's an entire page dedicated, and I didn't photograph the page because way too much information. But there's an entire page dedicated to this war that Asterix causes, who all the alliances are, how it all works, and there has to be. So it's very much it's teacher child about the Cold War 101. But again, I do enjoy.
I don't think we got. Do you know what? I'm not sure those were two names that were actually used there, Ring. Actually, surprisingly, but
no, they're not. Although
they're pretty much every other sort of take on that you can think of. It is with the Goth names. You got euphoric, metric, rhetoric, electric. What else? What other ones we've got? There's a load. There's been some. Why am I drawing a blank here? But there's so many of these.
There are. I do also enjoy the poor guard on the border because he can see what's going on. It's to the point where, because they're outsiders to the Goth fight, as it were, the Roman leadership or management, upper middle management, if you like, cannot comprehend that it's true.
Yeah.
And by doing that, the poor guard gets it in the neck. Quite literally, he gets. I'm pretty sure this is a Great Escape joke.
It wouldn't. Yeah, probably.
I am pretty sure this is a Great Escape joke. Or it's just a general military joke in general. But 8 days confined to the barracks and 4 of them on fatigues. It's.
Hi, Ilya. Happy birthday for yesterday.
Oh, hi, Ilya. Happy birthday. Hold on, my screen's doing the thing. And that one I like. And then the only other picture I took through the whole thing, because quite frankly, I knew we were going to talk a lot of politics and I needed a break, was the final shot, the final one.
Yeah.
Which, again, is another running gag within Asterix, and I quite like.
The banquet.
Yeah, the banquet's quite fun. So Obelix is telling the story and everyone's feed him more, shut him up.
Yeah.
Then we also have our friend the bard in the corner as well.
Yeah, obviously stop from singing. We don't want him singing.
Yeah.
And
this does. I like that. I like you get to the point with this series where the running gags in it begin to feel almost homely.
Yeah.
Like they almost become a kind of security blanket against some of the harsher stuff, reading it as a modern reader. So,
you're right, Rum Ring.
Damn it, husband.
Oh dear. But yeah, I mean, you do get again, because you get you got this a bit in the last book, and you see it sometimes in this when like Obelix is sitting in the dungeon, his mind is constantly on food. His mind is constantly on food.
He probably needs plenty of food to keep that running,
Yeah.
Because as much as he's drawn as sort of the big clownish, ball of fat, that's pure muscle. It must be for him to be able to lift some of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you remember that the kind of the gag with him is he fell into the pot of magic potion as a baby. So he's basically permanently superhumanly strong. Which is why Getafix won't let him have any more, because he's concerned what side effects might happen if Obelix has any more of that potion. He's concerned about side effects if he gives him any
He'll
more.
probably evolve Pokemon style into like Obelix Plus.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Obelix Zard or something, you know, it's. But this one was for me quite a rough one to get through, as you can probably tell from the way I've approached it. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the humour, and I'll always appreciate Cold War satire. Anyone who knows me knows, Yes Minister, you know, Faulty Towers, Yes Minister, that's my kind of humour.
Yeah.
And you can't really watch comedy from that era without having to grit your teeth through the anti-German sentiment and the Cold War jokes.
Speaking of,
Yes Minister is amazing. That's what we should do a stream on.
You see what hubby's put there. Very good.
Yeah.
One of the late books shows what happens if Obelix gets. Oh yeah, I don't think I've seen that particular one, or if I have, I don't recall it. I said a lot of the ones I read were the sort of classic era of the book when it was René Goscinny and Albert Adair. I mean, some of the books post Goscinny were good, but I think there was something slightly missing. That was just my opinion. But I do love Albert Adair's animation, and it's one of the things you've definitely by now you've really kind of seen how these characters are going to be drawn now, and it's you can really see this now, can't you, with this? Because I think the animation in these is just lovely.
It is. The animation does stand up. It's very, very nicely drawn. You can tell it's kind of pre-Japanese influence on Western media, because it's got the sort of the harsher lines that we don't really draw as much anymore. And the characters are drawn with a kind of. So I've noticed in sort of anime style, manga style drawings, you get a lot of characters and their bone structures very defined. You don't get that so much in this. They're very much drawn as human.
Yeah.
Couldn't do a series on classic British comedy, Jen. It would never end.
Yeah. Oh, we could do a one-off thing of maybe at some point on that, but
a one-off thing on any British comedy would be about 4 hours long, though.
Yeah.
And Ring would definitely want in on a lower low.
Oh,
that is brilliant.
I do enjoy that. Speaking of Ring, I am putting the link to his stream he's got coming up later in the chat. So,
cool, beat me to it.
Because we'll be going over there after this stream ends. But I mean, we've got through this one a little bit quicker, perhaps, than some of the others. And probably, maybe I said, there is a bit of this that, as we said, there is elements of this that don't stand up too well nowadays. But overall, it's still quite a funny read. This one, it's just this perhaps is not aged as well as some of the books have, because of some of the things we've mentioned. But I mean, but even so, again, some of the gags here, like during the Astrixian Wars, we said Rhetoric goes after Lyric. The avowed intention of bashing him, but the rearguard is surprised by Metric's vanguard. Says this maneuver is called the metric system.
The metric system comment's quite amusing. I think if you read it as a satire on the 20th century as a whole, you probably enjoy it more than if you take it as probably originally intended. I think it's existed for so long, it's become a satire of itself, is possibly the way to read it. if you want to get sort of maximum enjoyment out of it without having to, you know, hold your breath and count to 10 a few times.
Yeah. Go ahead, Hissy.
I think there's a real intelligence actually, though, in the way it's done. And I mean, it's no different than today. You know, if someone wrote a comic book about a great buffoon character and a country of people who, you know, all wore caps with his face on it and went around, you know, and satirized America. In 50 years, it's not going to hold up well. But it exists in this time because it's what this time needs. And humor is a great safety valve for a lot of frustrations. So I think I'm trying to be kind because I appreciate that that's a situation that, especially me, who was born after the fall of the Berlin Wall, can never understand. I can study it till I'm blue in the face, but I'll never understand what it was like living under that, being French under that, having lived under German occupation, and then having to go through the Cold War as well and everything else. I will never understand that.
Yeah.
And it's one of the great tragedies of being a historian. You can never truly understand what it was like. You can have an idea, but you cannot.
Oh yeah, I caught the tail end of the Cold War, I suppose, but you know.
I mean, I got it because my dad lived through it, and my dad was Polish, so I was raised with a lot of the same mentality, but I still don't have that understanding of what it was actually like. I wasn't the kid being taught to dive under my school desk, knowing full well it would do nothing if a nuclear bomb went off nearby.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't the kid who, you know, had to hide somewhere because the Germans were knocking at the door. That was never my story.
Yeah.
So to even claim to understand that, having not lived through it, I think would be an insult. But equally, I have enough empathy. I think I can understand why this comic was written the way it was and why there was that backlash.
Yeah.
In the same way Americans are facing that backlash now.
Yeah. As I said, I think we're definitely, I think you'd have to read this in the context of the time it was written. I think that's the, you got to be kind, you know, that's the kindest way to read it and have that context in mind. When reading this particular one, but it's still got its charm, as the Asterix books do. But this is maybe the one where some of it doesn't stand up too well to, you know, our sort of cultural sensibilities, you know, sensitivities rather. But it's, you know, it is a product of its time, and I think that's what you have to remember. And so that, I think, was kind of puts a bow on Asterix and the Goths. We'll probably be next week. We want to do Asterix and the Gladiator. I think it's the next one, isn't it? If I'm correct. I think it's book 4. Asterix the Gladiator.
Yes, Asterix the Gladiator.
So that'll be we'll be doing that next week. Do you want to do that on your channel, or?
Yeah, let's do that one on my channel, seeing as it's based in Rome.
Yeah,
I think it's in Rome, isn't it? Finally go to Rome for the first time.
I've been a while since, you know, it's been a long time since I've actually read that particular one, so I actually am having the job to remember that. When I read through it again, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, you know.
Yeah. It looks like they're in Rome, or they're somewhere with a 3-tier amphitheater. So, and there's not many of them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have fun with this one because, they're definitely in Rome, because one of the squares I've just opened up to has got the Arch of Tiberius in there.
So
this should be fun.
This should be fun. Okay, so so there's a little teaser for next week. Now, obviously, One Ring's got a stream coming up a little while. So please go over and support that. He's going to be talking the original Star Wars trilogy, I believe, and he's got some guests on for that. So
he is, and I'm not going to be there because I'm not a Star Wars fan. But I will be I will be listening and possibly commenting, because my understanding of Star Wars is the whiny little kid took a shot and somehow it magically hit, and the big ship went boom. Is about the limit of my understanding of Star Wars.
I'm just checking Manda's not still in the chat when you put whiny little kid there. I'm just that comment will not go over well.
Will not go over well, but what can you do? But go over.
I'm on thin ice with Manda over my Jar Jar impression, so I'm not trying not to push my luck. So.
Okay, so you need to go over there, get on that stream, and do your Jar Jar impression.
No, I don't. I think Ring's got a full panel anyway today, so
yeah, but you know there's no space for you because I'm not going to be there, so you can take my slot.
If I'm invited, maybe we'll see. But
Ring,
so he's going to be starting. Says he's going to be starting in about 20 minutes or so. So we'll sign off so Ring can go and get set up. It's been Jeff, God the Scammer. I had Hissy with me from Hissy's Hideaway. A link to her channel is in the description. Please go give Hissy a sub. And next week we'll be on her channel. We'll be talking about Asterix the Gladiator. All right. See you later.
Cool.
Salute.
Take care. Be good. And if you can't be good, as always, be careful.
Yeah. Stay safe. Bye-bye.